Okay, welcome everybody. Happy AI Literacy Day. There are events happening all over across the country and around the world, so please share in the chat where you're joining us from. As part of the celebration, we're presenting this live professional development series on AI literacy. Go to ailiteracyday.org/synchronous-pd for the full schedule. Throughout the day, you'll have the chance to do a deep dive into the future of technology alongside leading experts. For this webinar, we have a group of school leaders from around the United States brought together by Yusuf Ahmad of Playlab. They'll share how they've built their understanding of the possibilities, risks, and opportunities for using GenAI in education through hands-on making. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being here. Take it away, Yusuf.
Hey, thank you, Laura. Look, this is going to be a conversation. It's Friday afternoon. Let's try to have some fun. And I'm lucky. My job's easy because we're with some of the most fun, thoughtful people that I know and have the pleasure to work with. Again, my name is Yusuf Ahmad, one of the co-founders of Playlab. Mike Yates, who's on the webinar, as well as actually most of these folks here are kind of honorary founders because of the work that they've played in helping us get off the ground as a tech nonprofit. But really, we're here to learn with and from the wonderful work that these leaders have been doing in their communities. I'll just say this, there's a lot of talk about AI literacy. It's often very theoretical, very abstract. And what we're going to hear about today is how do you move from talking about this stuff to doing, to getting hands-on in a way that's responsible, that's equitable, that's inclusive, and that helps us think about how might we use AI to advance teaching and learning, not just today, but to help reimagine and reinvent education for the future. And so with that, I'm just going to hand it around to our panelists for a quick round of introductions, and then we're going to have a conversation. I'm going to kick it off with Scill. You mind starting us off?
Hi, everyone. My name is Scill Chan. I'm the principal of Brooklyn Collaborative. We're a grade 6 through 12 school in Brooklyn, New York, and we are affiliated with New York City Outward Bound School.
Okay. Mike.
Yo, my name is Mike Yates. I work with the Reinvention Lab. I lead the Reinvention Lab is an R&D arm of Teach for America, where we build new products and programs to push Teach for America into the future of learning. And I do run my own school. I run my own homeschool. There's 4 students in it. And I'm the chief project designer in that school. So
one of the most interesting homeschool curriculums I've seen. Why don't we pass it to Kevin next?
Hi, everyone. My name is Kevin Hesseltine. I'm the principal at Flushing International High School here in New York City. My school is for all newly arrived immigrants, so students that are coming in who English is not their native language. So we're taking all the new students coming in that are coming into our country.
Okay. And do you want to add what you shared earlier about just which ELLs you take?
Oh, yeah. So we are... the premise of our school, too, is taking emerging English language learners. So it's students that are not fluent in English yet. So our job is to then work with them, putting English and the content of subjects together and developing the language.
Really cool. Sabba, you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Sabba. I'm the CEO of Designing Schools, and we, for the past 10 years, have been looking at how we can use design thinking practices for preparing kids with the skills and mindsets for a world with AI.
Okay. And Ed, bring us home.
Hey, friends. My name is Ed Castro, and I have the privilege of serving as the Family Leadership Coordinator for the Consortium International in New York City Outward Bound High School District. We have 50 schools in all 5 boroughs, and I have the opportunity of co-facilitating the AI Professional Learning Series with Yusuf.
Okay, well, thank you, Ed. I'm gonna kick it off with Scill, actually. So one of the reasons I'm really excited to hear from Scill is, as a school leader, 2 things. One, Outward Bound is very different than a traditional school. Right, very project-based, very student-centered, about getting out into the world. And 2, as a school leader, you've been radically accessible in terms of who you invite to the table. I remember seeing a PD where you invited all your staff, paraprofessionals, student teachers, right, operation folks to play and tinker with AI. You might share a little bit about why you decided to include everyone, and maybe kind of some of the shifts and reflections that came out of that experience.
Definitely. So our name is Brooklyn Collaborative, and we definitely try to walk the walk. So in spaces where we can be inclusive, we make the decisions to do that and not limit access to knowledge. So especially for professional development that makes sense and is around AI, it's about equalizing access and helping take away those barriers, it made complete sense for us to make sure that all of our staff had that baseline training. So we invited, of course, all our teachers, paraprofessionals, our counselors, our restorative practice coordinators, our office staff, our school psychologists. So everyone understood that we're just in an industry that will be impacted by AI in the future. So there's no little silo island you can be on. So we're all open-minded. That's one of our core values, and we appreciated everyone working with Playlab so that anyone moving forward can make their own tools in service of what they specifically do in their roles in school. But so amazing for everyone to learn together and share, do that gallery walk together. We also are preparing that next generation of teachers, which is why the paras and the student teachers are really valuable to have this training early on, because we're lucky to have a very veteran staff. So certainly a challenge of that is that they're very seasoned in what they know, and it's hard sometimes to go into that next level of like, oh, I'm gonna have to implode what I have been doing and has been successful because there's a future that I didn't grow up in and I have to prepare students for, and I don't know what I don't know. So it's a win-win for us as a community. And then as an outward bound school, we are definitely bringing our students out a lot. We actually are in a network of schools that vote to do a modification to the contract. So there are these little pockets of innovation within public schools. And our teachers vote to have field work every other Thursday. They're called Expeditionary Thursdays. So teachers vote because they're consistently losing their preps. But that's a challenge because teachers have to then plan a whole day of field work out of the building. So one of the AI tools that we built with Playlab has been a fieldwork planning helper, so that teachers can just put in like what are the parameters that they want a local park that can fit a group of students without a permit. Where is a museum that's good for this? It coordinates all the train routes, like where you can stop. So it's been amazing to just make these fieldwork plans really clean and take that burden off of staff who are trying to think out of the box.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Before I jump on to somebody else, any of the panelists, like questions or reactions? So I'm hearing from Daniel, like examples, and you just shared one. I'm actually kind of curious, like part of what we're thinking about here is as we think about literacy, like did you notice like folks like shift in how they were thinking about AI? And Ed, feel free to jump in because I know you were there as well.
Yeah, it was amazing to see how fast the transformation happened, but it's a testament to the culture at BCS. You had people with reservations, right? They saw Sarah Connor, they saw the movie, they had reservations, and they had people wondering, are they working their way out of a job, and a big, epistemic meaning crisis going on. But then when they saw that, listen, we have a finite units of head, heart, and hands. And they said, I could free up some of my head so I could put more of my heart and hands into this work. And that's the core of what we do, what BCS and many of our schools do. So once they got to leverage that this is not to replace, but to enhance, the buy-in started happening right away, from basketball curriculums to history curriculum to social justice tools. And I was just so proud to be a part of it.
Okay, well, thank you for sharing that. Scill, is there anything you want to add? So one I'm hearing is that like folks went from kind of like, what is this, to like just getting hands-on, help them think about real possibilities and real applications, which is cool. Were there any questions that you feel like folks are still wrestling with as you came out of that experience?
Yeah, to echo Ed, I was really proud to see how open-minded they were, because previous to that experience, I had shared that we had really only spoken about AI in terms of our anti-plagiarism policy and really framing it as a negative thing, and like teachers should be mindful of how AI is evilly used to do all these things. And to shift it and see all the teachers just immediately accept like, oh, this whole world I didn't understand, and it can make my life better and make it more relevant. So I think that it was just incredible to make such a useful tool that everyone was like, oh, I can do this.
But I like that. So it's like moving from anti-plagiarism to like, how might we actually harness this technology to advance teaching and learning? I'm seeing folks nod. Kevin, Sabba, either of you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. So I was in a coordinating council meeting where it was steering committee, and in that same meeting,
Mhm.
the beginning of the meeting, we started off with people talking about like, oh my God, AI and plagiarism and like all these problems with school. And then as the meeting evolved, then someone's like, hey, have you seen this app or this AI that actually makes it so we can differentiate text? And like, how amazing is this? So like at the beginning of the meeting, we're talking about the sky is falling AI. Oh my God, what are we going to do about education and the end of being able to write? And within that same meeting, it shifted to look at this tool and how useful it is in ways that we can make education more accessible for students. So it kind of captured what my feelings were about AI, right? Like we go through, I think, that natural progression of at first, like Ed was saying, and like it's scary, but then realizing, wait, we can leverage this into something that makes it so much more powerful. And with the idea of with the idea that if we can design the right tools, we're giving teachers some time back to actually plan deeper and better resources for students and making it more accessible because they're starting down the road so much further with using AI and leveraging it. So when we started out working with Playlab, originally it was I started a bot kind of being like, okay, how can I design something for a new teacher coming in so they can learn about my school, kind of learn about what our ideas were, what our instructional focus is. But it started to evolve into me thinking, wait a second, why am I the one choosing this? Let's bring the staff together. Let's bring principals that I work with together, and let's start talking about what are the documents and what are the things that we think a teacher needs to be successful. And also norming my staff now around the same idea, the ideas of what we believe in the premises of our school, and then loading those readings and the professional development all into Playlab. So now it's coaching them with exactly what we believe as a school.
Really interesting. So it's not just about tool building. I'm hearing two things from you. Like one is like, how might we shift? Like, how might you like even just use playing with AI as an opportunity to step back and reflect on our beliefs about teaching and learning? That's like a really interesting provocation. I'm kind of curious, Sabba, you think a lot about design, right? Like what Kevin was basically talking about is design, like what problems, what opportunities. Tell us more about some of the work that you do, because I know you have your whole framework, the Spark framework, and like you often like are really focused on how do we anchor how we think about AI and like actually like rich design processes.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really echoes what all of you have been sharing, that really the design process, when we look at it, it's like that empathy piece. Like, so when I hear you talk, like I'm just reminded of how like when we start with empathy, like what we think is challenged by what we learn. And so much of our fears come from the assumptions that we hold. And so, creating like, you shared, Kevin, that time and space for people to come together. Some of the work we've been doing a lot with people is really revisiting vision, mission, and values. Whether it's a learner profile, whether it's just your vision statement, mission statement, values, whatever they are, and looking at how to use that language to create guidance and policy. And once you kind of have that as your overarching framework, I think a lot of times, sometimes like the vision just sits around, and we don't always even remember what it is. This is a really nice opportunity to build it forward, build community around it, and also build shared lunch. Because, to Kevin's point, what he was sharing, it's kind of like our next step with many of our school districts is now that you have this shared language, you can use that to do quality control on the back end as you build out these different kind of, agents and whatnot, like Playlab, is our next big one that we're going to do this with. Being able to have that language of your learner profile, your vision, your values, and all those pieces is really, really, really helpful. And as we, if you want to go into the prompting thing with the Spark framework, one of the things that we believe a lot as well is to like prompt the human before the machine. We find a lot of times when people just go straight to their AI tool, like I need you sort of fall into like that substitution trap. And so again, just taking a step back, like what is my situation? What is my context? Like, what do I really need? And more importantly, why do I need it? Why does this really matter to me? What am I trying to create? Because if you don't really care about what you're creating, it's a moment of pause to be like, is this assignment or is this type of activity something really worth doing? So that's sort of like the work we've been doing a lot, is really just revisiting vision, mission, values, and looking at how to take that language to align and create what's next.
Can you dig a little bit deeper? And I'm going to invite Mike as well to jump in here. But I feel like when I talk to school leaders and teachers and paras, it's like there's a lot going on, right? I mean, folks are busy, right? Things are often stressful, especially post-pandemic. Not like they weren't before, right? And what I often notice is just like, one, folks don't feel like they have the spaciousness to think about this. And what that means is like they're either they freeze, or they often just kind of revert to like easy traditional kind of ideas and problems. How do y'all get folks to kind of like move beyond kind of like, frankly, like, problems that might not be all that impactful to things that actually might lead to deeper learning and better teaching?
Mike, you want to go?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's how you set it up, right? Like, sometimes there's power in just telling people to ignore the obvious, right? So, like, one of the things that I love doing, especially at conferences, is I tell people, like, yo, go back and walk through that expo hall and see how many products are building lesson plan builders. Like, and then I tell them, like, trust me, your school leader is going to buy one of those products. Your district's going to buy one. So, like, while we're in here doing this particular type of building, let's focus on something different. So sometimes it's a matter of just like setting them up to brainstorm a different set of problems. One of the things that I created at the Reinvention Lab is this set of cards that can help anybody like organize their own learning experience, whether it's Playlab or another tool. Playlab is the primary tool. And we have a few sets of cards in there that's like, here are some interesting problems that any person, not just an educator, any person could use this tool to dig into. And there are things like coffee shop locators and Black-owned businesses along a bike route. They're all inspired by tools that we've actually seen people build. So if you just give people that base to sort of ideate away from the status quo and trust that there is an arms race right now of like 17 companies all coming for your Google Classroom suite, like they will figure it out, and they will figure it out well. Magic School or one of them, like they're going to get it. So like we can push them in a different direction.
Tell me more about how you do that concretely. Like one of the things I saw you do is like getting people to dance. So look, I mean, it's like what Sabba said. Like sometimes you have to prompt a human being before you let them go prompt an AI. The thing that, I mean, you know this about me, Yusuf. But for everybody on the panel that doesn't know, if the field is going left, immediately I'm like, well, I'm going right, because I was a kid that was damaged by the school system, that was told I should have been left behind, that at every turn, no matter what I did, the school system said, hey kid, like you're wrong. So I'm like, cool, I'll just continue to be that same person as an adult. So I love like doing things that don't involve a laptop at the beginning of the sessions that I run with Playlab. So yeah, Yusuf mentioned like the first thing we'll do before I even tell them my name, I say, stand up, and everybody at your table point at one person, but not like you're pointing at a partner. Like you should be singling one person out. So it's like Survivor on the table, and that person has to be the dance teacher. They have to teach a dance to the table, but they cannot show them the dance with their body. They can only use their words. And you can already connect the dots. Like that is the first exercise in being really specific with an AI. Then they have to, they select another teacher. Second teacher can't use words or their body to show the dance. So people start using videos. They show like a reference where they start typing on the note sections. We have other ones where if it's a smaller group, we blindfold half of them. We lead them to a different part of the building, and they have to be led back to the room that we're in with just the voice of their partner. So like any way that teaches a person to be really specific, to use examples, right? Like it's all these like very basics of prompting that we give them in an active way that they'll never forget. And that feels demonstrably different than what they just got on that panel with the quote unquote pioneers or the quote unquote experts about AI. That just told them that they need to memorize Claude Shannon's mathematics of communication, or they need to be tracking every move that Sam Altman makes. Some of that might be true. Like there is definitely a role for like basic knowledge and geeking out about the field, but also like we just talked about it, teachers don't have time for that. Teachers are like, yo, my students they come into class tomorrow. I don't have time to be reading Business Insider to figure out whether or not Sam Altman is going to be fired as a CEO. It's important to know, but I don't have time to figure that out. So that's how I get around it. I'm curious if that sparks any reactions from anyone else.
I think the quick win is really important for people. I think, one thing I've been telling people, I've been pushing back a little bit on this time narrative because everybody's busy. nobody has time. Like it doesn't matter what field, what industry you go to, everybody is busy. But right now, what we prioritize is going to make or break what happens next. And so where we choose to prioritize and how we choose to do that, I think having people experience a really quick win gets them to really understand the urgency of both what's possible and what is possible for them. I think a lot of people see opportunity, but they don't see it for themselves. And I think that's really important. Like just yesterday in the session, I had a principal and he was, look, I deal with discipline issues all day long. He's like, my email right now, I just got 6 discipline like notices for like teachers while I'm away. And what we ended up doing was like using Playlab, we like uploaded his code of conduct and like a couple other things, like, oh, draft a parent email, but like what could some like restorative practices be? Like, how can we have a conversation with students? And now every time he gets an email or something happens, he can go in and be like, this was the scenario. And it's going to give him that entire, like, here's how a couple questions to start having with the student. Here's how it aligns to your code of conduct. Here's what you need to like issue out according to like, your code of conduct. Here's the email that you can draft out to your parents. And just seeing something like that happen, that's something he's like, it would have taken me like an hour to deal with that whole scenario. To have something so quickly generated for you to get that work out of the way, I think is really important for people because they can't escape that work. They have to deal with that work on the day-to-day. And showing them a really quick win. Like he was so motivated for what else he could automate in his life to get that same result. And I really liked, Ed, I think you said a line like you free your heart and your head. Like, I can't remember what you said, but I thought it was such a beautiful line. And that's exactly what I think we need people to do. You need to free, say it again. It was so beautiful. I loved it.
Oh, you free some of the units from your head so you could give it more units for your heart and hand in your work.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There you go. I love it. And so that's, I think, what people need to experience. They need to get the stuff out of their heads so they can go to their heart and their hand. I'm going to steal that. That was a brilliant line.
Ed, do you want to jump in? I feel like we haven't heard much from you. And Ed, if you don't know, like he kind of like, he's basically like one of the innovators in residence for one of the largest districts in the world. Right. And, when I called the superintendent, he literally was like, you got to talk to Ed. He's like the guy. And what Ed's been leading, again, like, incredibly humble, but he's been leading 2 things, right? One is these hands-on workshops where principals, assistant principals, paras, everyone in the districts is just getting hands-on and like playing with AI as a context for just like, what does this mean for me? What might be possible? And then 2, facilitating conversations around how do we start to use this, not just for efficiency, but to do things that deepen really student-centered teaching and learning, stuff that increases student agency, that gets kids out in the world, that builds relationships between families and their schools. Do you mind sharing a little bit more? I don't know if there's a story that you might want to share from that work. Anything come to mind?
Well, our district has a strong emphasis on work-based learning. Mm-hmm. And I always tell them that public schools are notorious for being behind, right? And we make everything a villain. And then we pivot everything around that thing, right? And so whether it's social media, whether it's Wikipedia, and I was saying that for once, let's only be 1 step behind and not 4 steps behind. Mm-hmm. And so when my superintendent, I'm an early adopter because I have a son that's like a super smart AI researcher with Latinx and AI. And so he put me on early and I was begging everybody. I was telling my parent coordinators, and a lot of them are older and a lot of them are maternal. And I was telling them about this and they were like, Beto, you're such a cheater, right? And I was like, I'm not a cheater. We're using tools. And they were like, and so I had to like reframe it. But tools are always going to be used, right? In secret, whether it's teachers pay teachers, right? Whether it's Quizlet, tools are always going to be there, right? And so sometimes we shape the tools and sometimes the tools shape us. So it's better to guide the eyes towards a vision of the future and help create tools that could stay within the framework of our vision, our mission, and our values. And I think this is what a lot of our work is with Playlab. Like we know you're using ChatGPT, we know you're using Claude, but let's make our own tools, right? That's steep in our vision, that's steep in our pedagogy philosophy, and let's be builders and let's be creators instead of consumers. And so I'm really lucky to be a part of that conversation in this district.
I mean, you've been doing
that. Can I throw some gasoline on this fire that Ed just started? I love this. So I'm I helped build a school called Alpha where we were playing with AI in education before it was cool. Everybody was still talking about metaverse. Everybody was still talking like generative AI is new. Like that's the new hot thing. But machine learning and AI for learning, like that has existed for 14 years. So we were doing this. We replaced direct instruction with adaptive learning software. And let me tell you something. Kids still cheated. They still gained the apps. Like we never thought we're going to deal with academic integrity. We dealt with it all the time. Like we dealt with kids clicking through. We dealt with kids getting in a group, solving one problem, and then everybody solving that problem, like basically, like literally cheating. We dealt with it. So like, I love that you guys are like you're like, look, we're not afraid of cheating anymore. Like we're gonna put our own ethos into our tools and really rock this out for New York. I love that. That's cool. And like from a person who I've returned home for the first time in 15 years, like and I now live in the city where I'm from. Everybody is once again with an emerging technology forgetting about Houston. Everybody's leaving Houston behind. Like that, and that's why this town still really is an old oil and gas town. Like it's one of the biggest cities in America. But like when I was growing up, nobody said AI to me. I went to San Francisco when I was like 16 and I came back. I was like, y'all don't understand what they have up there. Like they're talking about self-driving cars and we're talking about like the BP oil spill in Galveston. So like I really commend you guys in New York. Like the effort I've seen in New York, the time I've spent in New York, like all the energy, like every school leader I've met. So really, really appreciate you, Ed. Really appreciate you.
Okay.
I think too, with all of that, it's getting the agents, giving the students, the teachers, the agency to have control over what's going on. So if it's as a leader in our building, giving the agency to the teachers. Teachers are artists, right? And they're creators and they're going to create lessons. And lots of things are getting forced upon us being like, here's this camp curriculum, here's this camp curriculum. And the teachers are like, this is garbage. This is what I joined to be a teacher for. So by us creating these tools, I think it frees them up to really be the artists that they are and really create the lessons that are needed for the students to be thinking. And then in turn, letting the students have that agency over their own learning. So then the cheating, we end the cheating really quickly when the kid cares about what they're learning, and they want to be invested in what they're doing. And that's when they're going to do it. Because it's not even about the grade anymore. Then it's about the learning and what they care about. So I think that's where, and they care about AI, they care about computers, they're adopters, they're really quick adopters. So they're going to be on that. So it's how do we leverage that for their real learning?
Really cool. Really cool. Anyone want to jump in? I also happy to tee you up with more questions. And if folks in the chat, feel free to ask questions as well. I know one
really
thing.
echo the approach they're taking. I just wanted to really echo like everything like they're sharing, because even as you listen to like the subtle nature of like the approach that you've taken, that there's kindness embedded throughout. And I think that's something that I see a little bit lacking in the space when we approach the topic, whether it's with teachers, whether it's with students, just in the general narrative. I do feel like kindness is really missing, and that empathy piece is really missing for students, and just like how dramatic of a shift this is for people who are really close to the edge. Like if you're a student, you're graduating, like you're really close to like those changes compared to say maybe some people like us. If you're a teacher, like you're kind of like right on the edge of that cliff, like dealing with both the tension of the past, but also like the present and the future. And so I just personally listening to you really appreciate like the kindness.
Scill, you want to jump in? I'm kind of curious. George in the chat is asking about how do you guys perceive the shift of agency that GenAI might bring? And I kept hearing stories after your workshop that like, I think it was Mercedes or possibly Java, some of your paraprofessionals talking about just how they're never invited to the table, and just the stories about how they felt that they left with more agents. You mind just diving in a little bit there?
For sure, and really switching the agency to students most of all, and honoring them as individual learners. For us, that's been what has really drawn a lot of teachers in, because we are, as a public school, serving a wide range of students and very academically diverse here, that the tools that they're creating are helping some students so that they can work with some other students. And I think that's really helped them to understand what's at their fingertips is this opportunity that I can really do right by all of my students by meeting them exactly where they are, which is the beauty of AI, right? Everything is individualized for the user. So hopefully the agency is shifted to the young people who are going to be, right? For most of us, we're probably like mid-career, like, we're like on the other end. We might be adapting to technology, but we're not going to be like the true creators of it. Those are the young people. Those are our middle school students who are trying to learn how to be, self-disciplined with their electronics. So for us, that's been a balance too of like messaging also to young people that electronics and having it too early is not very good for them. But then also like the earlier you understand how to use these bots and use them in your education, it's good for you. So those are one of the things that we're learning about too, like who's in charge of like who's driving the next step of our journey as a school and how we're going to embrace AI.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Scill, I would also add, it's the field, right? Like somebody said this earlier, but like in education, we normally sit on our hands when there's emerging technology. Like education missed the social media wave in a way that was really problematic. Like social media does suck sometimes, but that's good. Sometimes people suck. And like it's like these are not sentient AIs that are writing mean tweets. These are human beings behind keyboards, right? So I think like teacher agency is really important too. Like one of the things that one of the things that makes me roll my eyes is when ed tech companies are started by people that have never been in the classroom and they don't do everything they can to put themselves in school environments to understand what it's really like. Because until you're sick and you wake up and you ask yourself, is it worth doing all that work to be absent? And then you show up at school with Mucinex, like, I don't know if you really get what it's like to be in that classroom. You know what I'm saying? So I think shifting the agency in a way that like shifting power, like I remember Yusuf and I had this conversation a long time, actually almost a year ago to the day, we had this conversation about like what it would look like if teachers themselves were builders at this moment in time, as opposed to consumers getting told how to use products. There used to be this like ed tech play where if you wanted your product adopted, you built what's called a blended learning model, which is basically a software engineer who's never set foot in the classroom says, hey, teacher, here's how you use our shiny new technology that we have sold to your superintendent because they ain't coming to your classroom either, right? So instead of that happening, like now the blended learning models are being created by the teachers and students themselves in the classroom. So I mean, this is why I ride for Playlab, right? Like I think Playlab is a tool that is one of the only tools that allows that to happen at scale. And it's why like we're trying to get to as many people as we can as TFA with the tool.
Pause though. We have 10 minutes. I'm going to push this into a lightning round. Let's forget Playlab for a sec. What are some other tools that you feel like as you're getting hands-on, trying to build your literacy, your understanding of AI, how might get to work with for you? What are some of the other tools you like going to? I know Mike and Sabba, you both like Canva.
Yes.
Tell us more. Why? Give us a quick pitch. How do you use it?
Sabba, do you want to go first?
I mean, Sabba's also keynoting the Canva conference.
Are you really? That's awesome.
I would say one of the things that I absolutely love about Canva is it's all about creation. I think as great as AI is, ultimately it's like what it powers, like Mike talked about social media, like it would be as if we all sat here today and obsessed over Instagram. Like Instagram is great, it's one thing, but how you operate as a creator and how you create assets and how you communicate your message of whatever it is you're trying to build, I think is so essential. So that would be one, but my other really big one, I think that is a huge thing for I think anybody in any kind of leadership role is Opus Clip. And the reason I love Opus Clip is I'm a really big fan of using video to communicate, whether it's externally online or whether it's internally with your own teams. And I think video can be so intimidating from editing, all the different pieces that go through it. But the fact that I, as like a leader, can just like ramble on and I can upload it into Opus and it's going to pull out my best clips, caption them, get them ready for me to send out. I really don't think people realize like how much of an impact it makes when people hear from people inside their organization. So Opus would be mine.
Really cool. Mike, I feel like you got a couple of other tools as well.
Oh yeah, man. I mean, like I just the tools that I've been looking for are ones that are not marketed towards educators, which is why I love the suggestions from Sabba as well. Like you got I will not repeat the love for Canva, but if you've not used Canva AI suite, like their tools, just trust us. Actually, don't trust us. Go explore for yourself. It's phenomenal. But I love 11 Labs. Like Yusuf, you know this. I love 11 Labs because I've enjoyed helping schools and students get ahead of where 11 Labs can be used for bad. So it's a voice synthesizing tool where you can do all sorts of things like recreate your own voice message. I like Sync AI, which is where you can take a video that you've created and it will translate, or it's Dub Sync AI, like, and it will overdub the video in any language in the world. So if you've got English language learners, or if you want to take a video and send it to a different market, like you can use that. Absolutely love that tool. And and then I'm really geeked out over Suno AI right now, which is it allows you to create music. And so I've got so many freaking ideas from Suno AI for like whole workshops that I'm going to build with students making their own music.
The thing I want to pull out from what Mike and Sabba just shared, again, two things, right? They're playing with real tools that are being used by creatives, that are being used across industries. And as you think about yourselves as educators, it's not just about your own practice. It's also about what is the world that your young people are entering into. And so like give yourself that permission, that like to play, to tinker. It's okay not to be an expert. And you might discover something that could be useful to you. And so thank you both for sharing. If you have other suggestions, just drop them in the chat, as well as participants. You know, feel free to just drop in things that you feel like are cool, hands-on, great ways to just like start playing with and get a better feel for AI. Couple minutes left. Want to just ask a couple real quick questions, particularly around challenges. This work is not easy, and someone in the chat had asked about just like often you have folks who are hesitant, right? They might just be so focused on, AI is a cheating tool, AI is a cheating tool, or just like afraid to get in, right? Mike, the reason I like your workshop around dancing is, we've talked about using technology is like learning how to dance, right? Everyone has their feelings, inhibitions about dancing. And sometimes to get past those inhibitions, it's just about doing it in a safe space. And I think with technology, it's often similar. So that's one thing we've seen work is like the workshops that Mike leads. But Kevin, Scill, Ed, y'all have been doing this with a super diverse district. Any lessons from that work, trying to get folks like to move from like stuck and like frozen to like actively exploring and experimenting?
Yeah, I mean, we just started straight up with like doing like a compass thing, going back and forth, being like, what's the fear of AI, where it is, and then going into and seeing like the power of it. And I think the more people start to play around with it and have access to it, the more they see and it demystifies what it is, right? Like it's not Black Mirror or all that stuff going. You can get into the other stuff where you're like, oh, this is actually really useful, and ways to make their life, make students' lives better. Right. And I think that's and I just want to go back to one part where we were talking before we shifted, but just that no one knows their students better than teachers. So when we give them just some extra resources to then customize them, and AI can help them customize them for their students, it changes the learning, versus like trying to get this big top down thing of like blended learning. Blended learning didn't work because they didn't know my kids. They don't know our students. So by having that where we're creating and they're getting to do it and customize it for their students, it just changes everything.
Interesting. So getting hands-on has been a way to which, and getting concrete has been a way in which you've gotten folks past that, like frozen. Scill, you're nodding your head.
For sure. For us, it's been around the urgency of it, that, we've lived through a mayor who really embraced virtual teaching with increased class size. So we are really talking about the survival of in-person, intimate classrooms. And to show that is what works, we have to be innovative. We have to be creative. We have to show that, no, you can't replace us with a screen, with, no connection and engagement from students. So we were successful in just describing to teachers, like, this is coming whether you like it or not. And it helps us all, and you especially, to stay on the right side of that. that change.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Lightning round. 2.5 minutes left. One last thing you want to share with folks who are here, and I'm going to kick it off to who wants to go first?
I'll go first.
Yeah.
I'm envisioning when we could just gamify these tools where kids are excited of having short quality time of engagement and study, innovative study, so the classroom could focus on community, right? And that this way learning could be at home. A portion of learning could be at home, could be on the train, could be on the bus, it could be anywhere. And so when we come together in school, it's to form community, and it's to be a place where they're celebrated and not just tolerated.
I like that. I like that. Who wants to go next? Sabba?
Sure. I would say echoing Canva again. I really think having students graduate with portfolios is just such an incredible thing to be able to leave with, to showcase yourself to others and create new opportunities.
Okay. I like that. Again, just anchoring with the goal, like portfolios, and then what tools might help us make those. That's really powerful. Kevin, you're above Sabba on my screen.
What excites me the most with it, and just thinking about it, is getting it in the hands of students to be the creators and the innovators, and having them look at the problems of or ways to make our community better, and actually like problem solving that, and using AI and using these tools to improve, you know, the town, the country, the world with what they can do and change. It's going to be pretty powerful.
Mike, you've been talking a lot about doing stuff with students. I feel like that teases you quickly.
Yeah, man. I would also say my answer to this is, well, I think AI literacy is really important, but like even with the conversation that we've had here, the term that I like using is AI dexterity over AI literacy, because literacy will lead to dexterity, but the goal is to get people to be dexterous with this tool, this set of tools. That's why I love something like Canva. Like I love Sabba's recommendation. Like, yeah, you should have a portfolio because that shows your dexterity with the tool. So that's my hot take there.
I like that. Scill, bring us home.
Yeah, echoing that, just from me, I also happen to teach our internship class here. So thinking through, we've had one of our summative assessments be that resume and that employability profile, and that to me now sounds so like 1950s. So it's what's the next level of having students show what they're capable of and that they're ready for this modern future, in the form of a resume, like a high school assignment that puts their profile out there.
Wow. Well, look, appreciate the panelists. I think just lots of love to each of you for making time on a Friday to share wisdom, your experiences with all of us. Folks who are here on your way out, if you don't mind just dropping in some gratitude in the chat, maybe even a thing that you're taking away from what they shared. The only thing I'll just add is this. We're at a moment right now where, AI could easily be consolidated, aggregated, right? Where, just like the kind of Web 2.0 social media, it's one big tech company sucking up all the data, right? And most of us end up being consumers. And I think what's at stake right now is there's a moment for educators to be creators, to shape how this technology is adapted and used in education in ways that just don't reinforce traditional school, but that actually advance the kind of teaching and learning that we want to see. That's beautiful, that's creative, where teachers have agency, where young people have agency. And the folks you just heard from, they're all doing that work every day with young people, with educators. And the invitation is, come roll with us. Whether you're playing with Canva, whether you're using Playlab, right? Join this community of educators that are really trying to put your hands up. And I love your point, Sabba. Like, we're all busy, right? And it's about prioritization. And I think one of the things that I hope we can all prioritize is, trying to shape this moment so that we can all benefit from it. But thanks to our panelists, and thank you all for coming.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks everyone. That was wonderful. Thank you so much to our panel. Thank you everyone for joining us. We'll be sharing out the recording of this webinar next week. Please check out ailiteracy.org for more resources, and happy AI Literacy Day, all.